Hey, horse friends, I'm Becca Salamone, and this is Southern Horse Talk. We are live on Blab. Woohoo! Thank y'all for joining. Thanks to the live viewers. Do we have any? We don't have any yet, but we're going to look for some. And welcome to the replay viewers as well. Thank y'all for coming to listen to us and give some of your time to share the Southern equine lifestyle. We really appreciate that. And today we have an exciting show. We've got Sydney Englund. She's got horsecrazygirls.com. And this is her show actually called Horse Crazy Girls with Sydney Englund on Southern Horse Talk. It's a mouthful, I know. But she tries to come once a month to tell us what's going on with her business and then bring a guest in to talk to a guest. So first of all, Sydney, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on with Horse Crazy Girls, and then we'll introduce the other Sydney there and we'll get going with your little interview. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Yeah. So we just got back from the Teampreneur conference, which was really fun. And I did a speaking gig there. So that was really good and my first one. So I think it went pretty well. So that's our exciting news for the month.
That's awesome. Well, while you're sitting there talking, tell us a little bit more about your blog and what you do, your website. And I'm going to share this out so maybe more folks will jump on here. Well, tell us a little bit about what you offer at Horse Crazy Girls.
Okay, so my website is for girls over the age of 13, and we have horse games, we have horse movies, we have horse books, of course. You can also share your own stories that you're writing, your pictures, art, anything really that's related to horses. We have it somewhere on the website, basically.
Awesome. Okay, got that shared out. I hope it went. So tell us now about your guest, because you have a very special guest today. She's an author, and she has written, is it a couple of books? Is it two books that you've written? And
so far.
they're horse-related books, so that's why we're having her on the show. And her name is Sydney Scrogham. But go ahead and give your introduction, because that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to get onto your toes there.
Yeah, so Sydney Scrogham is one of the authors that we have on our website, and we helped her with the release of her first book. We put it out there so our girls could read it, and from what it seems like, it did really well, and she recently released a second book. So that's what we're here to talk about today, is her second fabulous book that she just released.
Awesome. Well, go ahead, and you just ask the questions you're going to ask. I'm sure I'm going to have some at the end there.
Okay, so do you want to tell us just a little bit about your first and second book, just so if someone's tuning in, they know which books you wrote so they can go find them on Amazon and read them?
Yeah, the first book is called Chase, and it's about a girl who will do anything to keep her horse. It's a young adult fantasy and romance novel. And at the beginning of this story, the girl's name is Lauren, and her mom is actually in a tight financial situation and is about to sell her horse. So Lauren is like, I'm going to do whatever I can to go keep my horse. So she ends up walking out into the Blue Ridge Mountains, where I'm originally from in Virginia. And she ends up in this fantasy world where she meets a guy who is raised by alicorns. And they are like a combination of unicorn, Pegasus type horses. So this guy thinks like a horse, and the rest of the story is her learning how to interact with him, who thinks like a horse instead of a human, and then he becomes more human as the story goes. And the second book is called Ariel, the First Guardian. And in the first book with Chase, in order to kind of orient to this fantasy world, Lauren reads journal entries written by a character named Ariel. And so Ariel's the character that I wanted to explore with the second book. And it's more like the second book isn't so much of a sequel as it is a prequel.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, so obviously this is a really fantasy book, but really well written, just so it's out there. So how did you come up with the idea? Is that what you enjoy reading, is fantasy, and that's how you developed into this storyline?
Yes, well, the original story world and storyline began when I was much younger, young teen. It was a combination of like Bionicle Legos and My Little Ponies and Unicorns of Valinor books. I really, really loved those books. And so all that kind of came together, and then the story world evolved as I went.
Okay, and did you have this book written a long time ago and you came back and sort of went back to it, or did it did you write it and then publish it soon after?
Well, I wrote Chase when I was 15, and it took about 18 days. It was a very quick storytelling process because I was homeschooled, so I had that time to just sit down and write. And then through a giant mix-up with a publisher, ended up having to rewrite the thing. And I did that years later during National Novel Writing Month, and so that whole span was kind of like about a month. I've been told that's quick. For me, I think that's slow. And then Ariel's story itself took about 3 months. That was a little bit longer, but the story is also longer as well.
Okay, very cool. So obviously you wrote this book and you put it out there, and you said around 15 is when you first wrote it. So because our website does have younger people who are coming and sharing their own stories, can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Well, I'm not sure I understand your question. Do you want to know about the publishing experience or the writing experience?
Yeah, so you're writing and then going into publishing. How was that for you?
Well, for me personally, it was an unheard of process. I had actually had a teacher in high school who was an editor for the Wild Rose Press. I don't know if she still is or not, but she's really awesome. And she ended up taking Chase in its first manuscript form and submitting it to her publisher, who accepted it on the first try. So I didn't have to shop around. I didn't have to find an agent. I didn't have to query people. I was just good to go. And then the giant mix-up was what happened with that publisher, and I ended up getting my rights back, and the book wasn't published. And then I really had to kind of learn the book market and say, okay, I really have to go out here and find my publisher now, because this is what I want to do. And started querying the book again, and found Kohler Books in Virginia Beach, and they picked it up through their hybrid author plan. And that means that I'm splitting the publishing risk with the publisher. I paid to have everything for my book set up and developed, and then the publisher handles everything like the distribution and all of the business side of publishing.
Okay, very cool. So I assume that's what you did for your second book is what happened for that one as well?
I went a little differently for my second book because I felt like my experience with Kohler Books had equipped me so well to just go out there and be my own author. And like, I really like having control of my book. I like having control of the formatting, the cover, just all that. And I had a very specific vision for Ariel's story and had actually been offered a couple traditional contracts from publishers, but it wasn't what I wanted, what I saw for this book. So I decided to completely self-publish this one. And I'm super excited about that because it's exactly how I've envisioned it. I think it's gorgeous.
Very cool. Did you find that it was easier to self-publish your second one and go with a more traditional route for the first one?
Oh, yes. If you can get a traditional deal, then definitely go for it. It's a great experience.
Okay, very cool. So obviously you wrote the book, your first one, when you were a little bit younger, and then later on. So was your process sort of the same for all your writing books, or did you find that it was a little bit different later on?
No, my writing process has evolved so much. In the beginning, it was so bad. I would just kind of make it up as I went. And I'd be like, oh, I don't know what's happening, but I'm just going to keep writing and see how the story goes. But now I have a structure. I really don't like outlining, but I know that I have to hit certain story points as I write. So I give myself the flexibility to kind of be like, oh, hey, my characters could totally toss me in a new direction, but I know like I've got to get the opening scene, I've got to get the midpoint, I've got to get the third plot point, all these kind of things. So I'm either writing to or from one of those points the whole time, but I don't outline it specifically. That drives me nuts.
Okay. And then, so obviously it's horse-driven. So I'm going out on a limb and saying you were a horse crazy girl like the rest of us?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I've loved horses and even been on them since before I could walk.
Wow. Do you still ride?
Yes. My horse is actually laid up right now. He broke his elbow back in January, but he's on the road to recovery, and I'm just longing for the day when I can get back in the saddle.
That's very cool. So did you use sort of him as a basis for your alicorns for some parts in your book?
Yes and no. The inspiration for the horses that I write about all began with my first horse, Blue, and the first book, Chase, if you remember, was actually dedicated to him because he had broken his leg and had to be put down, and it was incredibly tragic. I don't know why I get all these horses with broken bones. This is just crazy. But so Blue was actually the story behind the horse in Chase, and then what I went through having to make the decision to, you know, this is the best thing for him at the end of his life. That also impacted the allegory character of Fish, I know, odd name, in Ariel's story.
Okay, very cool. So, I'm sorry. So when you decided to write the prequel, and you had the letters in the first book, which you based it off of. Was it harder to go back and instead of writing a sequel, write a prequel, or what did you find it was pretty easy based on what you had put in the first book?
I felt like it was pretty easy because what I had actually done was Chase was the last book I had written as a teenager, and so I had written all of these stories about the guardians of the Galway that had come before him. So I knew basically in the back of my brain what kind of a person Ariel was. I just didn't know exactly what story she wanted to tell, and so I went back and I wrote the prequel after everything that had gone through with Chase. So I was already familiar with her, I already knew her, I already knew that she was going to have a story. It was just a matter of when and how it was going to be written.
Okay, but you didn't have it written out before, it was just sort of in your head?
No, not like this. I'd written a draft, but it was nothing like the one that ended up being published.
Okay, cool. So obviously you were saying it didn't take very long to write the first book, or when you had to rewrite it, did you find the same thing for the second book, or was it a little bit more time consuming for the second?
It took a little bit longer. It took me about 3 months, and I was traveling back and forth to places in the midst of that, so I'd have to be like, oh, where did I leave off, and what was I thinking, because I'm really bad about taking notes. I just, like I said, like to roll with the story. So yeah, it took a little bit longer for Ariel's story, but I mean, once it was done with that draft after I'd written Chase, it was done. Like, the editors didn't have much to critique about it. It was like an unheard of, clean first draft, and I'm really grateful for that, but I don't expect it to happen again.
Cool. So it's called Ariel, the First Guardian. So I'm guessing that we're going to see more after this?
Yes, I have a plan for 3 prequels. It's like a prequel trilogy to Chase before I actually go and write a sequel to Chase, because that's going to happen too. I'm in the process of writing Rabashani, the Half-Blood Guardian, and that's based off of a side character called Rebecca that gets introduced in Ariel's story. So it's like they're all kind of related and bouncing off of each other, and I'm just telling their sub-stories within the story. It's turning out to be really cool.
Very cool. So are you going to be releasing those soon after this one, or how long is it going to be our wait time?
That's the plan. I'm really struggling with the 3rd book. It's just a really difficult character and a really dark story, because she deals with a lot more darkness than Ariel did, and a lot more betrayal. So the story is very difficult getting through, but I think it's finally coming together, and I'm hoping to release it within a year of Ariel being out. So by this time next year, book 3 is going to be out there somewhere.
Very cool. And I saw on your profile that you are a happy ending fanatic like me. So
Yes.
Can we expect happy endings still?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because that's my big thing. I always have to make sure they have a happy ending, or else
I know.
I'm a wreck. So, I know we were sort of talking about it earlier about the girls that come to our website and they have stories like you, and they might be 15 and writing these books. Obviously, you got very lucky with the first one and getting it picked up, but do you have any other tips for them about when maybe they're going to self-publish, or maybe when they're going to try to find someone to help them publish their book?
Yeah, I think definitely one of the most important things is to believe in yourself and not give up on yourself, and to have a plan, have a vision for what you want, because I didn't have that in the beginning, and I think I burned myself a lot because of that. And I love to talk with young authors. I've got tons of information out there in my blog, and if you come to my website, sswriter.com, a little pop-up box will open up and say, hey, would you like to learn about what they don't tell you in English class about publishing, and it's a 30-page free ebook of information that I've put together for people that are interested in publishing. And it's gotten over 3,000 views on Wattpad. I'm astounded that people really are interested and want to read this stuff. So
yeah, I'm going to download it.
Okay, awesome. And it's just in exchange for an email, and a link will come to you from BookFunnel, and you can download what you need for any e-reader. But that's what I would really suggest. If you're serious about publishing, go read my little tidbits, my gold nuggets of what I've learned and what I wished I could have done better. And then there's a lot of stuff that you can research there from that process. But that kind of gets the bug in your ear of, hey, this is what you look like you need to do. Because the business of publishing is totally different from actually being a writer.
Mm-hmm. So is your book are your books also on your website, I presume, so people can go and find them there?
Yes, it's
okay.
There's a big slider right when you first get there, and there's covers for both of my books. So, and if you click read now, it'll take you to my Amazon author page.
Alrighty, awesome. Sorry. So I know you were talking about a little bit where you grew up. Is that sort of what gave you because I know obviously your book is fantasy and it takes place in an extremely creative world. Is that sort of what gave you the inspiration, or was it kind of just the basis, or had nothing to do with it at all?
It's kind of like the basis for how I see the setting, but I mean, all the magic, no, none of it. It's just the physical location just looks like the Blue Ridge Mountains to me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Very cool. So, sorry, got distracted there for a second. So when you were, obviously your books are on our website, so they're not inappropriate, but do you have like an age recommendation in case someone is looking for a book that you think it should be in, like the age range?
Yeah. Chase is definitely for the teenage, young adult audience. I'd say that's, 11 to 18. And then Ariel, just for the content matter that Ariel deals with, because she was a character that went through a childhood of abuse, and there is no abuse actually in the story. But I do provide that disclaimer because I know some people in your audience may be really sensitive to that. And it's actually, there's a new age range, I don't know if you've heard of it, called New Adult. And I've been marketing Ariel's story as New Adult, and they say that's like from 18 to 25, basically college age people. So I say that one's a little bit older than Chase.
Okay, that's something to be, we don't want anyone getting upset.
Yeah, I don't want that either.
Yeah, please don't. So that's really exciting. And then I saw on Amazon, just kind of a side note, that it did really well in the review section. Your first book, obviously, because the second one hasn't come out yet. But
actually, it is out. It just came out like 10 days ago. So it's very new, but it is out.
I just thought I was special and got the book by myself. Okay, so the book is out.
You are special and did get the book to yourself.
Just me. No. Okay, so, but you must be really excited that it did so well in the review section.
Yes, I'm very excited. I couldn't have asked for anything better than that.
Was it sort of like when you get those, do you read the reviews for your books?
Oh, yes, I read every single one.
You read all of them?
Worse.
Do you use them for your other books when you write them, or do you just sort of read them just because, or do you use them?
I read them and I'm like, oh, this person was my target audience. And if they hated it, oh, they weren't my target audience. And I won't try to market to them ever again. I'm sorry. But I do also take the reviews and use them a lot in my social media. And I'd be like, hey, so-and-so said this about my book. And if the person has credentials, like I've used horsecrazygirls.com reviews of Chase for my marketing materials because that's a credential for my target audience that works really well. So business of publishing, these are all in the back of my brain. So that's why I love reading reviews, because there are gold nuggets there that people might relate to, because it's basically someone else saying, hey, this is what I thought about the book. And sometimes they can say it better than I can because I'm too close to it.
Yeah. Very cool. So are you planning on writing, because I know sometimes authors, they'll go back through and they'll maybe change parts of their book so it can be for a younger audience. Are you planning on doing that, or are you just going to keep
Not
it sort of
for
the same
Ariel.
age range?
Yeah, Ariel's a very strong character. She would not let me do that. Like, she writes her own promotional posts to me in my head. She's got that much personality. So her story isn't changing. I don't know which way the next book's going to go, but I'll find out when it's done.
Cool. And then, so obviously your characters are well developed and they all are different in their own ways. So how do you come up with them, like in their personalities?
Well, I mean, they just kind of happen. I don't really know how else to describe it. It's like I picture a couple of things and then a whole personality just blossoms around these couple of things, and there's a character there that starts talking to me. And it sounds crazy if you've never experienced. You're like, oh my gosh, this person is schizophrenic. But I'm not. That's just how the process happens. These characters
It's inspiration.
They talk. Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you ever get stuck when you're trying to come up with them, or maybe like pieces don't work together? Has that happened to you before?
I spend a lot of time interviewing my characters before I actually write about them. So I will sit down virtually, not literally, one-on-one with them and ask them all kinds of questions about themselves. And that gives me practice too, writing their responses from their voice, and it teaches me what they sound like, what their preferences are, and I learn so much about them that way. And sometimes I even learn more about them as I go, but I haven't really ever gotten stuck with a character.
And in your storyline, do you find it's pretty easy once you start writing to keep going, or is it sometimes things just don't line up?
I find the beginning to be really easy and the ending to be really easy. But when you hit the point after about 20,000 words and all of the beginning action has kind of gone through and is over and ended, then I'm like, okay, now I really have to commit to this. And that's where I really start to push myself, because then you get into the middle of the book and building the conflict. And that's the part I don't like.
So I know no matter what you're reading, sometimes I find some books are overdeveloped, some books are underdeveloped. I found yours to be really good. Good page length too, not those 500 monstrosities that you sometimes see. So is it difficult for you to like compact it down into that? Because I know for me, like when I read these characters, a reader gets so invested into them. I can only imagine what it's like for the writer.
I just try and write something and put it into a format that I would like to read. And I'm quick and to the point, and I like concise chapters, and I like also for a little bit of mystery to be left, because I like the reader to kind of be like, oh, well, maybe this character is like this. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe she is, and I just haven't thought of that. So I like to leave a little bit of that open space too.
Okay, and so sorry, now we're kind of jumping back to the first part of our interview, but
okay.
For the prequels, are you also, because obviously they're the prequels, so are we going to see overlapping characters throughout those books?
Yes.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite things about doing all these prequels, is I'm like, oh, I don't actually have to say goodbye forever to all these characters I love. And my plan, future spoiler alert, is to, in Chase's sequel one day, some of these characters are going to come back, and of course there's going to be much older because there's some generation gaps, and some of them are elves, so they're immortal anyway and they don't age. So I've got that on my side being a fantasy writer, but I want to bring them all to kind of meet for the first time, because Chase always thought he was alone, and that's just going to be mind-blowing to him in his sequel. So I'm really excited for that once I get there.
Okay, so all of us that get overly invested actually, probably, we can look forward to seeing these characters again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Don't worry about not seeing them. All right. Yeah, that's what I hate, is when you get so invested. You're like, what happened? I don't know.
I know. I hate that too.
Yeah, right? You just get so sad and depressed. So, obviously, you have this series to finish out. Are you thinking about your next series yet, or are you just like, I'm just going to finish this one before I even think about what's happening later on?
I have two other books going on in my brain simultaneously with all this, and they're not related to the Guardians of the Galway at all. But those are just kind of on hold for me until I finish this series. So yes, there will be more.
Okay, are there going to be more horse books, or are these going to be more purely fantasy mystery books?
Well, one of them is more like a superhero urban fantasy type book, no horse themes, and so far, the second book going on in my brain also doesn't have horse themes, but that may change as the story goes.
You never know.
That's true.
We can get one in there.
Yeah.
So are you thinking that you're going to probably sort of do the same one and self-publish these and have them available on Amazon along with all your others?
Well, they're available in other bookstores too. You just have to have them ordered. But I'm going to see how this experience with Ariel goes, because it's still my dream to be published with one of the big five. Like, if Random House offered me a contract, I would not say no. That is my dream. Penguin is like, hey, Sydney, we want you. And I'd be like, yes, I want you too, Random House and Penguin. So that's what I'm aiming for. But yeah, like I said, we'll just see. And depending upon how this goes with Ariel, I may or may not self-publish. I may do hybrid. We'll find out.
Yeah, so we'll just tweet them this Blab and they can come take a look in case they want you as
Exactly.
one of your writers. Just putting that out there in case they ever see this.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So I think that's most of my questions. Do you have any, Rebecca?
I do. I have not read the book, so can you give kind of a brief summary of Ariel, and then how much are the horses or alicorns? Is that what they're called? How much are they a part of the story? Is it kind of in the background, or is it the main story?
In Ariel's story, I think it's smaller than the role that the alicorns play in Chase's story, because they're his family. That's what he was raised by.
Okay.
But in Ariel's story, the story kind of kicks off when her alicorn fish is infected with a shadow force. And that basically means Ariel has a week to heal her partner from this infection, or Fish is going to turn into something dark that hurts the other alicorns. So Ariel's obligation as a guardian of the Galway means that she has to kill, destroy, completely eliminate all of the shadow creatures that seek to harm the alicorns. So she would have to kill Fish if she can't heal Fish. And that kind of is what kicks the story off for her and drives her throughout the whole story. Is she's like, I've got to save my alicorn partner, and I would do whatever it takes. And she really does do whatever it takes, because it turns out that she needs help from her guardian partner, who is named Ryan, and he's actually her ex-boyfriend from 5 years ago. And the things that she needs to do with him, she's very not comfortable doing, but she says, okay, I've got to anyway, because I've got to save Fish. And that propels her throughout the whole story. Is I've got to save Fish. I've got to save Fish.
Okay, so also as a mom of two teenagers, I noticed there's a lot of fantasy writing out there, series. Why do you think, as a fantasy writer yourself, why do you think that is? Why is it so popular now?
It could all just come back to Harry Potter, just looking at market research. Everybody wants to be the next J.K. Rowling on the writer side and have the movies and have that cultural influence. And I think also the magical side, for me anyway, for the fantasy, is with all the technology and everything in today's age, it's like that's not so impossible anymore. Like, it's almost so close to home that could almost start to be real. Like, there are a couple of times I've looked at the Blue Ridge Mountains and been like, hey, there could be alicorns flying around out there. We just haven't genetically engineered them yet. So it's all about what could actually happen in the future, and it's really close and tangible now.
Now, you mentioned Wattpad a little while ago. Tell everybody what that is and how does that help aspiring writers?
Okay, so Wattpad is basically a place, it's like social media for a book. And the idea is to serialize your writing. So maybe like every Tuesday, you post another chapter to your book, and people can comment on that and read it, give you feedback completely for free. It's a great way to kind of network yourself and, get some editing, get some community feedback. And for aspiring writers, I mean, this could either make or break you. If your book gets really successful, like I know Wattpad has like Wattpad Star, they hook people up and get them traditional publishing deals if their book is super successful on Wattpad. But at the same time, some publishers might not want something that's been released to the public in any form. So you've released your whole book on Wattpad and you're trying to sell it to a publisher and they're like, no, we won't take it because you've already released it on Wattpad. So, but I like putting just things out there that I think will help. What I do for my published book is I put 5 chapters of Ariel's story, and Chase has 3 just because of different contract regulations. But that's also one of the perks of being self-published is I can decide, do I want to put my whole book on Wattpad? Do I not? And I'm the only person that really suffers with that call, whether I put the whole thing on Wattpad for free or not.
Do you ever have any concerns that people reading it would steal your work, or is it protected by being on there?
Yes, I do have that concern. Wattpad does have privacy settings that you can pick that basically disables the right-click option so people can't copy and paste things. But, I mean, I just work under the honor code, and I'm like, if someone steals this, then that's going to come back to get them one day, yes. And that's going to be their problem. And even if they steal it and then try to write something else, I mean, they're not going to write it like I can, because there's so much more that goes on behind the book that the reader never sees, but the author has to know in order to write the book. So even if they stole it, they couldn't do it like I could. Exactly. So, I mean, I'm not too concerned about someone coming and stealing my work.
And as you've gotten more popular, are you speaking at horse fairs and horse expos around the country?
I would love to, but I have not had any opportunities to do so.
Okay, well, maybe folks listening should listen up. Should be a good speaker.
Exactly. Although I'm not really in my Virginia horse country anymore. I just relocated to Indiana, so I'm trying to find these horse people out here. So anybody in central Indiana, let me know.
There you go. Well, I think that's all I wanted to ask. Sydney, did you have anything else?
No, thanks so much for having me.
Sorry, I meant Sydney E.
Sydney 1 and Sydney 2.
Yeah. No, I think that's all I had to ask. I don't think anyone asked questions. I don't really know how that works yet, but I think we're good.
Yeah. So I guess we didn't have. Well, maybe your mom joined us, Sydney, for live viewers. But, as we keep doing this, hopefully we'll get more live viewers. And, of course, I am recording it, so it will be out there to promote, and I'll send y'all the links for that. But I appreciate y'all coming on and sharing the Southern Horse Talk, and, of course, Sydney Englund for doing it every month for Horse Crazy Girls. I really appreciate y'all doing that.
Thank you for hosting. Yeah.
So before we close out, just say one more time where they can go to get your information, Sydney Englund.
Okay, well, our site is horsecrazygirls.com, and Sydney Scrogham's books are on our website in our horse books, so you can come to our website and order through us, and that's where you can come find us.
Okay, Sydney too.
Well, you can go to my website at sswriter.com or check out any of my social media accounts. You can go the roundabout fun way and Google my name and follow my digital fingerprint, or you can go the simple way, and I always just say go to Amazon, because Amazon's got the best prices and best options for everything.
There you go. All right, well, thank y'all again. And viewers, you can go to Southern Horse Talk Facebook group and join over there, share your pics, your videos, your horse stories, and help us share the Southern equine lifestyle. Thanks, y'all. And I'm going to turn off the recording now.